Hello everyone, we should be live. We have a webinar today to talk about synchronizing Brownfield from Brownfield information using Slurp'it into Infrahub and why we might want to do that. So first, I'm Alex, Solution Architect at Infrahub, so I help our customers onboard Infrahub and help the community build schemas and things. And Peter, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Peter. I'm one of the founders of Flock9, which has two products called Slurp'it and Netpicker, and it's my responsibility there to run the development teams, help with implementations, and all sorts of things.
Infrahub, what is Infrahub? Infrahub is a data engine for infrastructure automation. So at the moment, current solutions can't cope with kind of the data complexity out there at the minute. So typically what we see is we see people running a CMDB tool, but also incorporating that with infrastructure as code and Git practices. And then we also see people using infrastructure management tools, which might be inflexible vendor locking depending on what estate you have, a networking estate you have. So Infrahub kind of sits in the middle of all these. We have an open schema so that you can define any schema you would like to see in Infrahub, from modeling cars if you would like to, or in our case, typically modeling network infrastructure. We built that on top of a version control that's very Git-like. So we have branches, we have the possibility to merge branches into the default main branch, and we have diff and audit trails. And then as your network grows, we solve the schema flexibility so that you can model anything in your network. So the key differentiators of Infrahub, for anyone that doesn't know, is we have that schema flexibility. We have a temporal graph on the back end that can handle our branching, and also be able to see the database at different points in time based on a timestamp. And we also have other pipelines and CI pipelines in there to be able to render artifacts, which might look at device configurations or render templates. And we also have something called generators, which can generate objects in the database automatically based on a set of inputs. That's the very high level at the moment. Just see where we sit in here, which is the intended data. Perfect. So I'll pass over to Peter at Slurp'it to just give us a quick run through of what Slurp'it is in the Flock9 system.
I will show you, I will do 3 slides, and then I will jump straight to the solution, and we're going to actually onboard a Brownfield network and show you how it works. Let me see, I'm going to share the right screen. So Alex and I discussed we don't want to make this too fancy with sheets and stuff, but it's more for the people who don't know us. We thought it was a good introduction that we both at least share something about the company, what we do, what we can do, and what we're going to show. So Alex, for this demo, is fully in control of the source of truth with Infrahub. We're going to store all the data there, and we're going to do that with our solutions within Flock9, Slurp'it and Netpicker. What are Slurp'it and Netpicker? Well, I normally use this pyramid to explain to you what it is, because our solutions are not open source, but we're built on open source and we contribute to open source. We both fund a couple projects and we are dedicated in doing commits and improving the solutions as well. And on the downside, what we then decided is that we go with some kind of different model where we give a lot away for free, unlimited. And then on top of that, we have a couple paid options, which makes us able to pay the bills, turn on the lights, and so on. And what I'm going to show you today in this webinar is actually fully built on the free solution. So we can discover all the devices in your network, all the assets. So you can give it subnets. I'll show that later on. We're going to connect to the Brownfield network with fingerprint. Is it the router? Is it the switch? Is it a firewall? We add it to our inventory. Then this is automatically being synced to Infrahub, where you see this coming in. So it saves you a lot of time by adding all those things manually. What Netpicker can do on the side is it can make all your backups for free. See it as an alternative for rancid or oxidized, but then with an enterprise company behind it. It's also fully available for free. And what I'm going to do today in the webinar as well, we're going to make some changes and sync those changes back to Infrahub. That's done with a network automation, which we recently announced, and that's also available for free. So just that you know that it's not open source, but you can use a lot for free, unlimited. And how we stack this all up, so we have, also from the network automation forum, this ideal architecture where you have a source of truth. And in our case, this is Infrahub. And then you have point solutions below, which can help you all together to work as some kind of new stacked automation system. So Slurp'it is responsible for the discovery and the reconciliation toward the source of truth. Netpicker is then doing the backups, and Netpicker can also do automation and testing. And with that said, we're going to start actually doing the live demo. So what you see here in my example is that I actually have devices in here, which I'm going to remove now because we're really going to start from scratch. So delete all. So we have now an empty system with no devices. We just have a container labs Brownfield network with 10 Arista devices. And what you can see here on the side already is that the philosophy of this stacked applications is also a little bit in the menu. So you can easily switch between applications here on the side of the menu. We can add Infrahub here as well. So you can easily switch between those three from one. So instead of buying one big product with everything in it, you can take, install, download what you need and what you're missing. And we're going to start now with the basics of Brownfield onboarding. That's actually finding the devices in your network. And what I have here now is I have the device finder and I have it configured for just one subnet. I'm going to trigger that so it can scan. It takes around a minute. And it will try to identify on this subnet for every IP first if it responds. And if it responds, and you can configure this the way you want, does it respond to ping or does it respond to a port scan? And when it responds, we will fingerprint this device with SNMP because it's the most easy way for us. And you don't need to load MIBs. It's just a generic SNMP. And we use this to fingerprint like, okay, you're a Cisco device, but are you iOS? Are you XR? Are you Nexus? And we need to know that to be able to select the right driver to be able to actually log in on those devices and get the next data in line. And while this runs, let's see if they're already found. So we have 10 now again. It shows here on the side, last seen. So what was the latest it was discovered? And to show you a bit how the fingerprinting works, like if I take an IP, I go back to the device finder, my tab loads. Yeah, there it is. And do SNMP tester, I can actually see how those payloads look, like what comes back. And you can also use it to troubleshoot or identify when you're doing this, to select, hey, is the connectivity there or whatever. And you see now from this live device, we got some basic information back, but we got everything back we need just to onboard an asset toward Infrahub. So we have the model type, we have the serial number, software versions, and so on. And the most important thing, we have the device type, which is the Netmiko driver we're afterwards using for the SSH connectivity. Now, what we normally have is that we have a bunch of default data objects we get out of the box, and those run on a scheduler. But for the webinar now, I'm going to trigger it manually because we found the devices, but we actually don't have data of them yet. So I'm going to schedule those quickly. The finder I didn't really need manually, so it can run while we go over all the other things. MAC address, routing table, software versions. So while this is running and it's scanning the network, I'm going to explain you a little bit how we do this. So we have something we call a planning. In a planning, you define what data you want to get for how long you want to keep it, and how often you want to get this kind of data, this attribute. Do not give an empty system. We out of the box give you 12 plannings. But if you want something else, BGP sessions, multicast information, you can just create a new planning here, and you can connect a template to it, which we'll show later on, and it will actually get data and normalize the data in here. Now, the tricky part for us, which is a very good match to work with Infrahub, is that our plannings are fully, configurable. So you can decide exactly your model. So for example, here for CDP, you can give the columns a name, you can reorder them, you can remove a couple, you can add different data. So you're fully in control. So to sync that to static sources of truth is sometimes a bit of a challenge. But the word Infrahub in this case is actually a perfect fit because you can literally take over the live device model versus the source of truth model. So to sync this data makes everything much easier. I hope that makes a bit of sense. So to see on the side, let's see if data coming in. Yeah, data's coming in, cool. So to know if all the data comes in and if something is still running, here in the menu under logs, you have the data collector. And if you go to job queue, you can actually see what's still in the queue. So we have 10 more jobs to do for the VRFs, and then everything is finished. If you want to build a planning and your own templates, we have here under templates our TextFSM templates, which consists now out of 1,500. And TextFSM is a method we use to parse non-structured text into structured text. So what I always like, for example, if I take a Cisco device, which I don't have in this sandbox actually, let's take an Arista device. And let's see, does Arista have a clock? Arista has a clock. So if I open this and I ask now, for example, for a leaf device, then here at the bottom I have a checkbox to say, hey, give me the raw output. It returns how the time normally looks when you would type this in the CLI. If we remove this checkbox, this template kicks in, and it's gonna normalize the output for you.
I think the one key benefit here is that you're able to manipulate the templates to what you need. If you need extra data from the show command, you can take that and manipulate it.
Yeah, and then you can massage it in such a way that it matches your Infrahub model. So it's very easy to sync. But it's just, I just wanted to give you a little bit of background, like, hey, how do we parse this data? How does it end up in the what we so-call plannings, where Alex is with Infrahub actually getting data from to sync it in there. By now, all the jobs should be in. So if I go, for example, here to interfaces, I see from the Arista devices all the host names, I see the interfaces, I see the IPs. It also calculates for how long this data stays the same. So if you have for a certain project where you need to see if a certain type of value didn't change for, let's say, 180 days, you can see it as well. And with this data now in here, I'm going to hand it over back to Alex, who can actually show you now how this data, which we just discovered from the Brownfield network, is being synced toward Infrahub. Alex, are you ready to take the screen back?
Yep. Perfect. So for everyone's benefit, we have skipped the building the schema stage, and we already have a schema. We have a schema in here that models some network devices, device types, platforms, VRFs, locations, organizations, and IP address management, and some VLANs. Also, devices have things like interfaces. We're going to sync a lot of data, but it doesn't go into depth too much, so you can add whatever you need. And to do this, we're using an open source project that we maintain, which is called Infrahub Sync. And the idea with this is to be able to easily synchronize data between platforms. It's not just Infrahub, but between platforms. You can go from Infrahub to Slurp'it if you want. You can do many things. But in this instance, we're going to go from Slurp'it into Infrahub. So let's say I've just spun up Infrahub and I've loaded this example schema or a schema from our schema library. We have a schema library that has many different references to what a device looks like or interfaces. There's tons of examples in there. And we're just using schemas from that schema library, and we have that in there. And there's no data. We see there's no network devices, there's no device types. So that's all good. So I'm going to add a branch. I'll call this demo, and that will create a branch. Perfect. So we've got a demo branch now. Now any data in here that's manipulated won't get manipulated in the main branch. And now let me pull up my code editor. So we have previously installed Infrahub Sync. It's pretty simple to do. You can use pip or you can use UV. I just use UV install Infrahub Sync. Sorry, it's add. And that installs our package. And now what we need to define is it's easy to read YAML file that specifies the source and destination of where we want to synchronize to. So we have a source, which is Slurp'it, and this is how to connect to Slurp'it. We have a destination of Infrahub and how we connect to Infrahub. And then we have an order, what objects in Infrahub we want to synchronize in what order, because, for example, to create an interface, a device must exist first, right? There's a certain order we need to populate Infrahub in. So this maintains the order, and each of these are relating to something. So we have a schema mapping, and that specifies the schema node in Infrahub and where we get the data from in Slurp'it. Now, with our adapter for Slurp'it, there's some certain values for the mapping field that will go and collect data from Slurp'it and bring back some pre-processed data, such as unique vendors, and there's many more. So if we go to our documentation for the Slurp'it adapter, we'll be able to see the different options. Like unique vendors, we'll go and retrieve a list of devices and extract all their unique brands, which are vendors. And then we also have unique device types, and we have some others such as model function. What this will allow you to do is directly query the Slurp'it SDK in Python. So in the Slurp'it SDK, you would do devices dot get devices, and then execute that to be able to go query the devices. You would do pretty much the similar thing in the mapping. You do devices dot get devices or site get sites, and the same for planning results. So Peter went through those plannings earlier. We want to get the results of them, so we can pass planning results dot the slug of it. So it might be interfaces or might be VRFs, and then we can pull that information back. There's a few of them in there, and if we're missing any handy ones, just let us know. But if we go back to our code, we can see for the unique vendors, we take the brand, which is the key that is passed back from Slurp'it, and we are passing it into the name field in Infrahub. And we can specify all these different mappings. So to synchronize the country, we're taking the country from a site and put it in the name that Infrahub expects. And then we can go down the list. There's many different things here that we're synchronizing. So we're synchronizing device types, platforms, VLANs, for example, and we can specify different identifiers where to get that data from. So this is the VLAN table in Slurp'it, the planning results. And then we can also filter that data. So if we have any VRFs that are not populated, we can filter them out from Slurp'it, for instance, or we can transform some data that maybe Slurp'it doesn't have the data you need, or you need to manipulate it for Infrahub. Obviously, Peter showed you could change the template and format it how you want, but we also have the option to format it during the synchronization process. So for example, here, I'm taking the description and turning it into a string using Ginger, and then we register that new variable as description_string, and we can reference that. And the other fields are just coming from Slurp'it directly. There is the option to be able to reference relationships as well. So for example, for this interface, when we take the host name from the interface Slurp'it results, so I'll just get that up and show you what that looks like. So I can go to here, I can go to collected data and interfaces. So they have a host name, and if we actually go to the API, it might make more sense. These are the API calls that SDK is running under the hood, and I think it's number 3. There we go. So yes, this is what the API looks like. So we have the interface, we have the host name in the data. There you go. We can see this data is relating to SuperSpine 2, and we're just taking that data in that YAML file, and because we've already synchronized that, we know that that host name is the identifier, and it'll go and look up that relationship. So perfect. Takes a little while to just build out this file and make sure everything works, but once you have it, you run a command called Infrahub Sync generate with the configuration file attached, and that will generate Diff sync models. So we're using a library called Diff sync under the hood to create adapters and models for all these synchronizations. And then once we have these models generated, we have the ability to go and fetch a diff. So I'll just do that, uv run infrahub sync diff, and then we can do config file, and then I can specify my branch demo. And what this will do is it will go to Infrahub and go to Slurp'it and then tell us what the differences are. So here it's actually saying that this data is missing in Infrahub, the country is missing in Infrahub, and that's because Infrahub doesn't have any data at all. And we can see all of this data is missing, even the devices, the VLANs, the VRF, and then the interfaces. And when you're happy with that data, what we can do is, instead of doing diff, we can specify sync. So if we go back into here, I can just press sync, and it will do the same. We'll go and fetch the device information from Slurp'it and query what Infrahub has, does the diff, it shows you what the diff is, and then it will go and import that data into Infrahub. So it's just completing. Hopefully we get.
I think it was interesting, Alex, is as well to say that we did this together for a very big project, right? So we did for some service provider with how many thousand interfaces?
Hundreds
of thousands of interfaces. So Alex built the sync. I was in control of having make sure that all the data was actually in Slurp'it of like 30 different vendors. And since we use Netmiko under the hood, I think we built also 20 new vendors actually only already for that project, and then committed it back to the community. And then Alex was in control of making the sync there, making sure all the data came in, and including all the logic, because it was not just getting the raw data and syncing it to Infrahub. There was also a certain logic that if a device would be connected to a certain port with a certain description, it should be marked as a more important device than another. So in case there was an outage or something, that their monitoring system could see like, hey, how important is this device to my network? Should we raise a high, medium, or low alert? Those kind of things. And with the syncing tool of Alex, even if it looks advanced, which it is, it gives you a lot of flexibility of how you would like to have your data being stored in here for your use case as well.
Yes, definitely. And yeah, you can do a lot of things with it. And for example, if you're starting fresh, having a good, like, if you want to start doing automation, discovering with Slurp'it and then pushing it into like a tool to manage that data is really good, especially from just at the outset of automation. Maybe a basic inventory is good enough for you to start using it with Netpicker so that you can start pushing out configuration changes or having an accurate inventory. So yes, in this branch, we now have our device type, we've got our devices, we see that they're related to the correct things, so the device types. We have them tagged to the correct location, and each of these devices has their interfaces. So we can see if we go to management 0, it's got the management IP address configured there, which is quite nice. And we can go to the prefixes. This network's not very complex. It has a management network so far, but it has the prefixes, and we can see that IP addresses assigned in that prefix are just to this management network at the moment. And then we have things like VLANs. We have a few VLANs in there, welcome, Netpicker, default, that have been synchronized over. And if you're happy with those changes, we're able to create a proposed change in Infrahub. And you're able to open a proposed change to merge that data all back into the main. So what happens now is this merge process will go and check all the data's correct. It will go and do a diff against main, and we'll be able to see that all the data that's been changed. And also in the background, I talked about earlier, the CI pipeline that kicks off. There'll be some for schema integrity checks. And if you had any artifacts or generators in the background that run, they would show in here. So we'll just wait for this diff to complete. Oh, there we go. It popped in before I press the refresh button. So we see we've added 713 things from this very basic network that we've spun up in Container Lab today. And if you're happy with that, you can go and press merge. Again, if you want to go through the review process and have someone review that data before it changes, you would be able to do that. So yeah, we've merged the data. We'll go through, I'm just deleting the old branch, kind of like what you would do in GitHub or GitLab. But now if I go to my main branch, I can see my 10 devices are in there. But yeah, you can do reviews on that data, and if you had artifacts, you'll be able to see that as well. So it's a very basic synchronization, but we'll look at how we can take that one further now and using some other tools in the Flock9 arsenal to deploy a change to the network and then see that back.
Yeah, so maybe you can show the existing VLANs now, Alex?
Yes, yeah.
So the idea is, yeah, so we have three VLANs here now, and the idea is actually that we're gonna automatically deploy a new VLAN to all the devices and then have it sync back to Infrahub. So you have a bit of an idea like, hey, I have a Brownfield network, slurped it all in, synced it to Infrahub. Now we're going to make a change. Slurp'it gets the diff, syncs it back to Infrahub, and then in Infrahub with the branching, you can see again like, hey, there's a new VLAN coming in. Would I like to accept it, yes or no? I know it's a very basic example. It's just a VLAN, but I think it should explain enough like what you can do and how it should work in a live environment. You want me to take over, Alex?
Yes, go for it. We'll see it on your side.
Okay. So this is where I left off before Alex took over. So what we showed now from this whole thing is that we showed the source of truth, we showed the discovery, how it reads from the network, how it fills the source of truth, and now we're going to make a change. So inside here, I click on the bird icon, which is the logo of Netpicker, and it will log in. The cool thing here is that since those systems are integrated together, every device Slurp'it picks up is automatically being synced toward Netpicker as well. So you have one base inventory kind of for the Flock suite, so you don't have to maintain it in all places. It will be fully automated here. It has a couple nice features where you can quickly just test connectivity. For example, you have like a live CLI where you can quickly type stuff and just see like, hey, what does it return? It makes backups as well, so you can quickly, for example, compare Yeah, you can compare, for example, two backups. It pops up a new window. So let me drop that link in here to show you sort of what I see. So as you see here now, like before when Alex and I were testing the setup, we added the new VLAN, and you see now that it makes before and after the change, it makes a backup. So you can immediately see here the diff that happened inside your network. And what we're going to do now is we're going to deploy, a new VLAN. So we go here to the automation section. And what I just want to say again, the backups, what I just showed you, and automation that are available in the whole Flock9 suite for free as well. So just download Netpicker, try it out yourself. And what we have here in the automation is we have an option to create a new job. Out of the box, we give a couple, but yeah, you can of course make your own. This is divided in 3 different categories. So you can create a simple job for a network engineer that does not know Python or does not want to know Python, and he just wants to deploy code he would normally type on the CLI. Well, in case of the VLAN, that would look something like this. Let's say VLAN 80, description, test. You would type it normally on the CLI, now you do it here, and you can just run this and it will schedule it directly on the device. Actually, let's just do it. So I'm going to select this tags. It's going to be Arista, not Cisco. Does this work like this? Yeah. And what's cool to know is that under the hood, it's actually turning it into Python. So you don't have to know Python, but it's kind of synchronized. So we read the commands you type and we turn it for you into Python code, but you don't need to know Python to actually do this. So I can just type this now, and I think it's the right syntax for Arista. I'm not that good with Arista, but let's try it out. Let's see what it does. So I do run, and this simple rule is now, and we'll see this later on, you see it's running. So it should configure this new VLAN. Now we're going to do the same with the other one. So I just showed you the Python one, right? Where it reads the simple job here into Python. The cool thing here is that you can also easily connect it to any kind of API. So what you can actually do is you can read from Infrahub your next upcoming VLAN or from a device, like some interfaces maybe that you want to close, or maybe you tagged something in Infrahub that you want to monitor that interface, and then here you can have the Python script just connect to Infrahub and configure a SPAN port, for example. Since it's Python, you're kind of free to do in here what you want. It's really flexible. But what I want to do in this case is actually use the AI assistant. And you'll probably think another AI assistant, but this one is actually very cool. What the backend team did is they documented our API calls and manuals and everything inside the UI. And in here, you can type now your prompt, what you want to do. And in my case, I'm going to say, well, I would like to configure a new VLAN on my Arista AOS device. Please make it static in the codes with VLAN 99 and description, Infrahub, generate job. And what it will do now is it will generate our logic to make an automation job. And you can just click on apply, and then you see here that it made the job for you. So it's going to connect now to the Arista. It gives you some documentation. The commands it's going to execute, and afterwards it saves it as well. So it did that for you. Now here on the side, I can just select my tags again. So this will do the whole site Arista. This is what it's going to do. You can also select individual devices, but I'm going to deploy it on all of them. And yeah, I think we're going to run it. Arista, yeah, looks good. Run. Okay. And then here you see again that this is pending and running. And if I open one here from the previous one we did, you see that it deploys what we typed for the simple rule, right? So I said, well, I want VLAN 80 with description test. It configured it, but apparently I made a typo because it's invalid output. So it did create the VLAN 80, not the description test. What's good to know, not going to handle it in this video, there is a settings file where you can manage yourself as well what kind of errors should be handled as errors. So for example, invalid command should be handled as an error, but maybe you have certain scenarios where you don't want to handle it as an error, you just want it to continue. So you have full flexibility to actually manage that inside here. But yeah, here you can see that me as an engineer, this is actually not on purpose. I really thought this was the right syntax. So that actually verify what AI did then. Complete. Ah yeah, name of course. And it's the end. So here you can see that I was beaten by ChatGPT 5.2. But it's quite cool. As you can see, it configured the VLAN, it made a change. And here afterwards, you actually can also see what the change was. Well, the change was, in this case, VLAN 99 was discovered. Now what I'm going to do is that what we could potentially have done is trigger directly from the automation job, Slurp'it afterwards to rescan this device for a new VLAN. It normally runs, as we mentioned, like on the scheduler. I'm going to trigger it here now manually so that Alex for Infrahub later on can get the data. So we're back in here. As I just clicked here on getting the VLANs again after Alex kicked me out. Thank you, Alex. Normally this goes automatically right on the scheduler. Now we could have triggered it from Netpicker, but I just did it manually now. And while that runs, I want to go quickly back to Netpicker to show you the cool thing that when an automation job runs, that it does the change history as well. So you can see here exactly like what came new in during every change. And here you can see that my typo description, which doesn't exist. And you can see the same then with the backups. So for every automated change, it will also automatically make a backup, so you can always go back in time. Now going back here to Slurp'it, if I go to collected data and I click on VLANs, the new VLANs are in. See, we have Infrahub, we have welcome. Let's see. Yeah, they're all in here. VLAN 80 as well. VLAN 80 as well. Meaning that this part works. So we made a backup, we configured a new VLAN, we made a wrong VLAN, we synced them all back to Slurp'it. So all the data of the live network is now in here. And now it's up to Alex to show how we can get this new data in and how you can then again reconcile it between the branches and then merge it back to production.
Perfect.
Are you ready, Alex, or are you still struggling with the live stream?
Yeah, we'll give it a go.
Go ahead.
Perfect. So what I've done is I've just created a new branch called new VLANs. If I go back to my tool now and do a diff. So if I just run a diff with this new VLANs branch, we're able to see that Infrahub Sync picks up that we're missing two VLANs from Infrahub, so it says that they're missing. Now I can, instead of doing diff, I can run sync. And it should have synced the data. So now if we go and refresh this, we should see 5, and we do see 5. So it's created VLAN 80 and Infrahub VLAN at 99. Now, realistically, we wouldn't want to be running these command lines or command lines. Now, what you could actually do is get maybe Netpicker to automate that sync process, or we run the sync process on a schedule. So that
was actually my idea for the sandbox. Yeah, that we would run it on the scheduler, and that when people want to play in the sandbox and try this out themselves, that they can just see the data coming in.
Yeah, definitely. So the better way to implement that would be to automate it, not just run it on the command line like I've been doing. But we can now see the data's come into Infrahub, and if you're happy, you can go through the same process of opening a proposed change and merging that data back into main, because that might alter things like the rendered configuration if you've got artifacts or anything like that, which is quite nice. So hopefully we've shown you a bit about the Infrahub synchronization tool. Feel free to ask any questions on Discord or in Netpicker, the Slurp'it community. Where can they find some more information about you, Peter?
If you go to our website, flock9.io or slurp'it.io, netpicker.io, everywhere is a link toward Discord as well. You can find actually all the information about the products there.
Nice one.